Good morning. Today is November the 11th. It is Veterans Day. This is a big day. A big thank you to all the veterans that have fought for this country, for the freedoms that we enjoy. And, as we talk about the election, the freedom to vote as well. That is a huge thing that citizens of this country enjoy. So we thank you all for your service. Today, we will be talking about the election once again. I know this is our third episode regarding the election, but I think the first one, which released last Monday, was kind of a prep for election day. Then the one that was released on Wednesday was reactions to the election. And today, I guess we could just say that it is responses to the election.
Responses to the reactions to the elections.
Today, we are talking about, once again, the responses to the election. I thought this topic was important for us to talk about, even twice now, because there are a lot of responses, there are a lot of reactions to this election. And as Christians, I think it's important for us to be equipped to know how to discern, know how to have wisdom during this time. Know how to navigate conversations and be able to minister and pray to those that are having a tough time. And I think, our job as Christians is to speak the truth, yes, but also speak the truth in love. And so it's more of how do we do that and how do we combat the different ideologies that are coming up. We're going to be discussing stuff like Project 2025, 4B, and other things. And so you'll hear all of that this morning on the Dear Church podcast. This morning I am wearing the Make America Great Again hat because it is the candidate that I supported, and I think elated is the word.
Yeah. When you asked if we could do this podcast again on the election, I thought about it, and in the end, I think perhaps what we could do is maybe explain what MAGA is and what MAGA isn't.
Yep.
What some people do think MAGA is. Sometimes, some of it could be true. Like, some people could wear a MAGA hat and start harassing minorities. I don't know. Yeah. It could be true.
Yeah.
I just don't. We didn't see it happening. There's no evidence of it, but we do see people that wear MAGA hats get harassed. It is an overtly political message now when it should have been a very simple one. Same thing as like if you wore a hat that said "I'm with her," which would have been like 8 years ago.
Was that Clinton?
Yeah, I'm with her. And then if you wore that hat, I wouldn't expect you would have gotten harassed here in New York State, or in Jersey. But if you wore a MAGA hat, you would be. So maybe we could go over some of the platforms and what is overtly Christian, what isn't, what is overtly political, what it shouldn't be. Because I've seen a bunch of people say, if you are so happy for one political candidate winning, it's idolatry.
Yeah.
I wanted to push back against that idea too. Is it idolatry to want a candidate to win or to have some faith in an executive? Secondly, we wanted to also talk about, what I wanted to talk about was just kind of the dismissal of trying to understand what's behind a MAGA movement, what it is, what it isn't. Things like when Trump came to MSG, we had people with an Israeli flag and people that had an hijab on. Mm-hmm. We had people standing next to each other. We also, at the same time, had people like Richard Spencer. I don't know if you know who he is.
No.
But he's the guy that is the representative of the alt-right movement. And so he's literally a white supremacist.
Yeah.
And he came out and endorsed Harris, not MAGA. And so people are like, oh, it's like a 3D, 4D chess move. I don't think so, because he came out 4 years ago and endorsed Biden, and Biden won. And so, those are things that we are seeing happening. I don't think is necessarily covered by the media. And so we wanted to go over some of the things that media doesn't cover, but some of the things that media does cover, but we wanted to give a more biblical stance on it, because it's not necessarily red or blue. It's not necessarily red or right or left, I should say, but we wanted to say this is the Christian way of looking at certain things.
I just wanted people to know that not everyone that wears a MAGA hat, not everyone that voted for Trump is a racist, bigot, misogynist. I think a lot of people might hate me for wearing this. Even on this podcast, maybe even in public, people might hate me if I wear this to the grocery store. But I want people to know that just because you voted for Trump, just because you support his platform, just because you want America to be great again, does not mean that you are a terrible person. Does not mean that you're a racist. Does not mean that you hate women. It doesn't. Just like you being complementarian does not mean that you hate women as well. It's not the case. And so I wanted to wear it intentionally to show that you can vote for Trump, be a kind and loving Christian as I try to be.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty explicit in when we say you cannot vote for someone that is so pro-choice,
Right.
that is off the deep end.
Right.
And then anywhere in the middle, I think we're pretty open about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you could have voted for the Democratic platform in the last 8 years anyway. Maybe even going back further. But, just as a reminder, if you grew up, when I grew up in the 90s, it was, abortion, what was Clinton's platform? Bill Clinton's platform was, something like abortion should be rare, legal and something like that. But that's nothing to that effect now, where rare is completely out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't even started the podcast yet. So
Let's get to it. We got a lot of stuff to cover.
let's get to it. Welcome to the Dear Church podcast, where we exist to fill your ears and your minds with the study of God to see the world as disciples of Christ. My name is Sam Yang, and we have with us Pastor Eugene and our podcast crew here with us. And I was thinking today, if Chunsook and Brian have other questions or concerns that they would like to bring up, they should do that. And so I feel like they never show their face. It's kind of like...
You mean come out in front of the camera?
Yeah.
And then ask a question and then go back out.
Yeah, I mean, because I think, they also have friends and, different neighbors around them that may have different views that we would like to address as well.
Yeah, I mean, we live in Jersey.
Right.
Some people are shocked. To those that, I guess I'll address this first. To those that are shocked that we can address something like this so openly when it goes against, let's say, what many, or if not most people might think in Jersey, even people who go to church that are Christians.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you straight off the bat, I have pastors that come up to me, not just one, many pastors that will say, how can you hold a platform like this? And how can you say the things that you do and not divide your church? And so, I'll say from the get-go that almost every single pastor friend that I know, and if you're in Jersey, maybe they're your pastor. Just want to let you know they're my friend. They hold these positions. They do. But they won't say it outright because perhaps there are people that hold to, let's say, a Democratic platform or a Democrat platform. And, you don't want to divide them. You don't want to exclude them. You want to make sure that they still feel welcome in the church. And while I agree and I sympathize with that position, one of the things that we wanted to make clear in this podcast and in the sermons that I preach is this is what the Bible says. There's so much freedom that the Bible gives us that we have in God, but it's not freedom to go away from God's word, though. So murdering is wrong. That's something that we should say. Aborting babies is wrong. That's something that we should say. Not understanding the difference between a male and a female, a boy and a girl, a man and a woman, that's wrong to say that there's multiple genders. And so those are things that we talk about. And when people say these are overtly or overly political things, then our response always has been, they're only political because it has now invaded our religious life and beliefs. These are the doctrines that we have held, And now this political ideology has invaded the doctrines that we've held. To say that we cannot respond to what politics is trying to say over what the Bible is saying is something that we cannot stand for. And it's not just me that thinks that. And so there has been some criticism that I've been hearing like a few degrees off that, oh, this is just what I think. This is not what other people think. Well, I dare you to ask people what they think in our church, people that listen to this podcast, and ask them, why do you think that way? And I'll guarantee you that no one ever says, well, it's just what Pastor Eugene thinks, so that's why I think that way. Because this is not what we teach in our church. I don't teach that. The elders don't teach that. We say this is what the Bible teaches and this is what we want to hold. If you have a different interpretation of the Bible, then bring it here. And we'll see if it stands the test of scrutiny, where we are like the Bereans, where we'll look at other portions of the Bible, and the test of time. See if anybody else in history ever thought that killing a baby would ever be okay. It was never okay, even from the first century. We have, historical data that proves this, that Christian wet nurses went out, picked up abandoned babies, and nursed them and raised them. In fact, the first orphanages are Christian. Hospitals are Christian. The whole idea of helping the other is Christian. And so I hope people recognize that we want to get back to the Bible, and we want to just make sure that you all understand this. This is our history. This is our heritage. This is the Christian heritage. So I don't want to be ashamed of that. And so we could be a minority in, our area, our community, perhaps. But yeah, stand up for it. And know that, if they truly are God's people, they'll come around to that knowledge of understanding, hey, actually, abortion is a horror that we want to put behind us in this country's history, so that it will indeed be unthinkable in the future. And people will look back at this time and think, how could we have ever thought the way we did, where, it's really up to the woman. I personally believe, and this is what people say, I personally believe it's not right, but really we should leave it up to the woman. That's not, you can't reason with that. It's not logical. If you honestly think it's wrong to murder because the Bible says it's wrong, how can you say, well, other people should be able to murder? I just won't murder. That doesn't make any sense. And so, we want to continue on long form explaining some of our positions and say, there's so much freedom in what you could actually believe, though. I believe there's more freedom in the Christian faith than outside the Christian faith, because even look at it now. What is the testimony of people if they don't believe in this leftist ideology? It's very narrow. It's becoming more and more narrow. And that's what people are waking up to. They're waking up to this incredibly narrow and oppressive ideology that the left is continuing to push, not only on us now, but on our children. Not only do you have to put in your pronouns in your email signatures at work now, but your children have to be taught this. Look at Leonia. Look at these places in New Jersey where it's part of the curriculum, and the mayor comes out saying, there's nothing I could do. This is above my pay grade. Then who is it? Who is it that is coming down from? And that's what we want to kind of address, and how Christians can stand up for that.
That's just I just wanted to talk about that because so many people, when they ask our church people, what's CGS's position? What they're really asking is, what is Pastor Eugene's position, and how did you get brainwashed into voting this way because Pastor Eugene is voting that way?
Yeah, well, I didn't make my voting position known. I didn't tell anybody who I voted for.
No, you didn't tell anybody, but it's like,
I don't know.
Dang, if
it's assumed. It's assumed I voted for Jill Stein.
Green Party.
People in CGS have a choice of believing whatever they want to believe, as long as it's in line with the dictator. You can believe whatever you want to believe as long as it's in line with the dictator.
It's crazy because people might believe that when you say that. That's the crazy thing. We're referencing Matt Walsh's little segment at the end of his show a couple days ago. That was just, like you said, masterclass. So I wanted to talk about maybe some things that are still coming out of the woodworks. I'm glad that we're recording this on Friday because, it's been a couple days since the election and a lot of things have come out, a lot of reactions, a lot of videos, a lot of posts, a lot of statements. But I wanted to address, maybe start from the surface and then get down to the deep in a little bit. First and foremost, a lot of people ask the question, how could you possibly vote this way as a woman? Don't you know that they're taking away our rights? A lot of people would say, I voted for my daughter. People were crying saying, I fear for my daughter because my daughter is going to have less rights than I do. How can you possibly vote for somebody that is against women? Aren't you a woman yourself? These are all questions that people have asked. What is our response to that? Because, people probably think that we hate women because we're also complementarian.
Isn't that the running joke, though? If you're a complementarian, you hate women.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I wasn't aware that I hated women, but apparently.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a very popular narrative that just takes hold of, a group of people. It's a mentality that's it's out there, We could try to explain ourselves as much as we can.
Yeah.
In the end, you have a bunch of people that really love the Lord and want to do what, He wants us to do. We want to fulfill the roles that we've been given because it glorifies God. It is most beneficial for us. We get, unsurpassed joy by following the Lord, and our society starts to thrive too. Nations thrive when we follow God's will. And people disagree with that. They're just like, well, you're brainwashed.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if you think that, follow another way. Go try to figure out your own Ubermensch and, your own Superman mentality.
Yeah.
Your nihilism. See where that leads you. See where that has left us. It hasn't worked and it won't work. We know that because the word of God stands true. And so that's what we want to follow. Some people just want to follow some of the word of God. And so that's where we push back on and saying, if you're a true Christian, you want to follow all of the word of God. You don't want to just pick and choose what you want to follow. And it always has to do with sex, doesn't it? Whether it's woman roles or immorality, sexual immorality, whatever it is, it always starts there. And so that's where we always end up, going first in our podcast. We start off by saying these are the major issues because you just don't want to follow the word of God. And if that's the case, then, you can say, well, I believe Jesus is Savior. Well, Jesus of what? Jesus of your own making, of your own mind, your own imagination? Or is it Jesus of the Bible? Is it the Jesus that has been revealed to us in the Word of God? And so we always want to end there. I think it's pretty clear where we stand because this is not novel. The things that we believe aren't novel things. This is something that the church has believed for 2,000 years. And so these are things that we want to continue to hold on to. And we think they're good. We don't think that we can progress outside of biblical morals or regulations. We think that trying to adhere to them, because the Bible is the canon, is the rule, right, is best for us in our society. So let's continue to talk about that. And, let's actually forego the whole name calling, the reducivism, all that stuff. And so let's continue to see and talk about ideas and see how best we can glorify God with our lives.
Yeah, I completely agree. Some people may say, though, that you voted in, not you, maybe, because I guess you didn't say. But I voted in a fascist. I voted in an insurrectionist. Do you not remember January the 6th? Where were you? I was at home.
You might be in jail if you were.
That's true. Yeah. Some people are. Yeah. How would you respond to that? Because I think, even Vice President Harris has said that Trump is a fascist, right? And I know that the fascist definition has changed a little bit throughout the years. But people still bring up January 6th as an insurrectionist. And it always goes back to this argument of, so you didn't want to vote in a woman, but instead you wanted to vote in a fascist, an insurrectionist, a rapist, a woman hater. That's who you wanted to vote in, a convicted felon. That's who you wanted to vote in instead of a woman. How could you possibly do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we went over this in the last podcast, but she is a very poor executive, and I don't think that people just didn't want to vote for someone that is so bad at her job.
Yeah.
All the jobs that she's held, where you continue to fail upward. You know, that's simple as that. And then you want to put in a good executive, someone that actually follows through what he says and the things that he's promised. I think people just don't like him. They just don't like him.
Is he a fascist though?
Yeah, I don't think he's a fascist. I mean, we beg to differ on that item, but is he a strong executive? If you're a strong executive, people are always going to call you fascist or something, I suppose. I'm surprised people didn't call Biden a fascist, where he put out more executive orders than anybody. And so I think with every president, you're just trying to put out like all these executive orders. So all these EOs go out and they're just trying to push down all their orders like down our throats right from day one of their tenure. You know, we get back to government as it should be run, where you have different branches, judicial, legislative, executive, so that we could have rule and peace and order in our lives, so that the goal of all of this is, you know, what Paul says, we want to live a quiet life. You know, this is what, you know, the OGGW said. He's supposed to go back to his ranch. So he served 2 terms and he goes, I'm done. People are like, what? We want to make you king. It's like, no, I'm good. And he just wanted to live a quiet life. You know, that's why he's a great man. Now they want to tear down his legacy, his reputation by calling him a slave owner.
Apparently he never lied.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Oh, is that Abe? Oh, that's Honest Abe. Sorry.
Yeah, he cut down a cherry tree or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are things that we want to continue to talk about. I mean, if you want to just stop at you can't vote for a fascist, I guess you just don't want a conversation, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so we could say, I can say that Kamala is a communist. I can't vote for a communist, though.
Yeah.
Just, all right, fine. And that's it. Like, what makes her a communist? And then you could name all the policies that are, that kind of promote communism that we don't want. Yeah, I just don't understand the whole shift that has happened where fascism is our greatest threat. I thought communism was our greatest threat, but that slowly has been changing, and China is not a big threat to us anymore. I don't know if you still remember. Remember they sent balloons over?
Oh, yeah.
To spy on our military bases, our nuclear silos and things like that. And no one says anything now. It's all forgotten. It's all erased in the ether. But yeah, that happened. Russia doesn't do that. Sorry to burst your bubble. But China is still doing stuff like that. They're still buying up farmland right where our military bases are, right where all our strategic places are. It's easily proved if you look at satellite images. This is something that Dr. Phil handed over to Trump during his interview. He's like, can you take a look at this picture? It's one of the most insane pictures out there. Is fascism our biggest threat, or is it communism? I mean, we could have a discussion on that if you want to go to stuff of that nature. But I just don't think people want that conversation. They just want to go, he's going to take away all our rights or something to that effect, which just seems like a nonsensical answer. So if you come back to us with nonsense, it's hard to respond saying, no, you're not going to lose any rights. I mean, how do you respond to something like that? When the people are going hysterical over, we're going to lose all our rights as women. You're going to lose 0 rights. How about that?
Well, so I wanted to just kind of maybe put down the foundation here because some people might not know what fascism is. And this is from AP News. The question is, what is fascism? Fascism is an authoritarian, ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement. It is often associated with the far right and characterized by a dictatorial leader who uses military forces to help suppress political and civil opposition.
Yeah. And so Mussolini was a classic
Yeah.
example of a fascist.
Yeah.
I would even go as far as if you, let's say, rally up, or not just the people, perhaps your, not just military agencies, but your federal police agencies, for instance, the FBI, or your intelligence agencies like the CIA, to go after your political opponent.
Uh-oh.
I think that's fascism too.
That's what Biden did.
Because that's not what Trump did.
Yep.
Trump did not do that. So there's no evidence of him having fascistic or dictatorial rule.
Yeah.
But in fact, Biden did that.
Yep.
No one says, a bleep about that.
Yep.
And so it just seems like people are cherry picking, and it's just false. I don't know what else to say, but people are always trying to get you on your backside to defend, like your back up against the wall to defend Trump. I'm not here to defend Trump. I'm here to talk about Christian principles, but people always want to push you against the wall.
Right.
To say, defend Trump, defend this, defend that. And when you go, I don't want to defend it. I don't want to defend, some of his rhetoric. I don't want to defend that because some of that stuff is bad.
Yep.
How can you vote for him then? What? Why do you think people voted for him, though? You think they voted for him because of his fascistic rhetoric? You really honestly think that's why people voted for him? I think the thing that the election should have done is burst people out of their bubbles, out of their echo chambers, to understand this is what people have been really seeing, especially when their media bubbles have burst. And this is what we want to talk about here too. We'll go off in a little bit more on details on this podcast, I hope.
Yeah.
So no more general accusations of how can you vote for a fascist. Let's stop talking about that.
Yeah.
Let's go to why we wouldn't vote for someone like Harris specifically, and why we would vote for someone like Trump specifically. Let's talk about that. Why wouldn't you vote for someone? Let's take abortion out of the equation, because that is the number one thing for Christians. Let's say you're a Christian who just thinks like, oh, abortion isn't that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. First of all, you're wrong. It's the biggest deal. But
can you take abortion out?
No, that's the thing. That's what people are trying to do, though. All right. How can you as a Christian vote for someone like Kamala Harris when she is so staunchly pro-choice, who wants to kill babies, who revels in it so much so that she would visit Planned Parenthood, defend it, put pro-lifers in jail, put journalists that expose Planned Parenthood, she puts them in jail, takes all their tapes away, raids their homes. People like, for instance, James O'Keefe and other journalists. James O'Keefe just happens to be a very popular one that people know about. How can you defend them? Because isn't that fascistic? Isn't that really dictatorial?
So on this topic of one issue voting, because you brought up abortion and a lot of people, the accusation is that, if you're voting Trump, you're just voting on one issue. That's not fair. I found this platform, this political platform, and some of the highlights of this platform that I saw were all citizens shall have equal rights and duties. Land and territory must be used to feed the people of the country. The right to vote enjoyed by the citizens alone. The state must make it its primary duty to provide a livelihood for its citizens, creation and maintenance of a healthy middle class, prosecution of those whose activities are injurious to the common interest, no matter their creed or race. Nation's health standards are raised by protecting mothers and infants, prohibiting child labor, freedom for all religious denominations in the state. This is a platform that I've read of. Now, if I were to ask anybody, would you vote for this platform? There seems to be nothing wrong with this platform. Nothing. But I think if I told you what platform it was, that it was presented in February 24th of 1920 in Munich, Germany by Adolf Hitler, you would say, I would never vote for that platform because they have killed 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. right? That one issue changes your vote entirely. That one issue. So if I were to be like, well, that's just one issue, that makes no sense for somebody like, what are you talking about? You killed 6 million Jews and that's one issue. I would never vote for that party. But that's exactly what's happening now. We could talk about climate control. We could talk about economy, immigration, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if there's a genocide going on right now, why would you ever vote for that party? That makes no sense to me. So this one issue voting thing, I get it, might have made sense in previous elections, but this year that makes no sense.
Yeah, it's a big issue. We definitely want to understand why we believe what we believe, yes. But I think the bigger issue for our listeners on this third podcast now on the election is how we can still have fellowship with those that disagree with us. You know, granted that they still want to talk to us.
Yeah.
Instead of lecturing us. Well, that's totally fine. But I also wanted to equip people to respond well. So if that's your number one issue, do you have a number two, number three? Oh yeah, we all do. We're not like just, simply one issue voters.
No.
It's a primary issue. It's the ultimate issue.
Yeah.
But there are other issues that we are looking at, that, let's say the Democrat ticket did not vie for, in fact, supported the opposite of what we want. And so, ultra nationalistic party that has been defined as this new MAGA movement. So what is that pushing up against? That is pushing up against this shift in culture where, we think that globalism is a good. Does that make sense too?
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to define it for you in case you didn't know. There is a globalist agenda that's real, that's true, that the Democrat Party has picked up. And so when people push back against it, they're just labeled ultra-nationalists. But this is what a globalist agenda looks like. Number one, it's a loss of national sovereignty. That's why borders don't matter and things of that nature. Number two is free trade with the open borders. So, when people are talking about NAFTA, how it's great for us, blah, 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 or free trade with China, how it's good for us.
Yeah.
Some people push back against it, saying that these globalist policies are actually hurting our domestic industries, which we saw happen. And so people didn't like that. What about surveillance and control? So the bigger you become, the more fascistic you have to become. So globalism is fascistic. It is dictatorial in the sense where you must have more and more surveillance. You must have more control. So you have effectively a police state around the world. This is what globalism has to do. You have to have things like what China is doing with social credit scores, where if you do something bad, then your social credit score goes down and you can't purchase anything, even if you have money. That's a globalist agenda. There's also something that people have been noticing. It's environmental and social policies.
Yep.
And so when you're really pushing for environmentalism, if you're really pushing for social policies, which is a soft term for socialism, but if you're really pushing for these things, then what you're really pushing for isn't necessarily for the climate to get better. This is what people are always kind of confused on. This is why we could talk about climate change later on. But Jersey did this, and Jersey, honestly, the Jersey leaders, the governor, they're really dumb. When they put up all those windmills and all these whales started to wash up on shore, what do they do? When there's a little bit of wind and all these windmills fall back into the ocean and sea, and we can't, pick them up again. We don't even know how to dispose of them. We have to continue to put oil in them, kind of counteracting what they're trying to do in the first place. But now we know, like these scientists are going out and studying, like these marine biologists are going out studying what windmills do. When you have hundreds of windmills out there in the sea, in the ocean, what's going on is these turbines are creating noise, and it's deafening for the whales. So when they are migrating, they hear this noise, it's deafening, so they just die. It's like, imagine someone screaming in your ear for hours and hours upon days, upon weeks, and you're your body just gives up, and that's why we're seeing so many whales washing up on shore. So if you're truly an environmentalist, why aren't you talking about things like this?
The bird graveyard.
Because it's not about it's not even the birds dying, but it's not about the environment. This is what people are waking up to. Oh, you really don't care about the environment. What do you really care about? Regulation. So you continue to hammer down regulations on our industries, on our small businesses, and what happens then is, you get to have control. Again, it goes to a police state, it goes to surveillance. Another one that we talk about when we talk about globalist agendas is a homogenization of culture. So everyone has to believe this ideology. Why do you think the pride flag has a flag? Why is there a flag for pride? And why is it something that, teachers are now paying homage to in their public schools? Why do you have to put it on your classrooms? It's a homogenization of culture, saying we're going to teach our kids this culture. This is the primary culture that we want. That's a globalist agenda. But this is the big one that I really wanted to get into, even though I spent some time on it. All the elites that we're talking about, they're all unelected. The people have no choice in the matter. And so you have all these cultural elites. You have places like the WEF or the World Economic Forums where people are invited to say, this is how we want to move the world or this globalist agenda into. There's no secret. This is not a conspiracy. They literally have this. And they invite all the world leaders, all the celebrities that to come and partake in this, this whole forum led by Charles Schwab, right? And so they do this. These are all unelected people. No one voted these fools in to change the world like that. And so these are wealthy individuals, and they get their government officials in line with them. And this is what people are really concerned about. And so when the Democrat Party is for them, people don't want them. So you could say this is a high number 2 for someone like me, where I don't want a globalist agenda taking over our nation, because I love the freedom of religion. I love that we can worship God, bring the God of the Bible into the public square for debate, for discussion, and have a seat at the table when it comes to public affairs, when it comes to legislation, when it comes to, deciding what communities can follow. When you have things like the things that I talked about here becoming more and more in the forefront, now they're not even hiding it. It used to be the globalist agenda was kind of secret. So if you believe it, you're this conspiracy, nut job, and you have to wear tinfoil hats and things like that.
Yeah.
Now it's not. It's literally out there. You can find it on YouTube. You can YouTube WEF and look at the stuff that they're saying and be like, I don't like the Great Reset. I'm sure people have heard of it. I don't want the Great Reset. I don't want this initiative. And this was a conspiracy, quote unquote, theory that people were saying, that these globalists have. But this is exactly what they talked about. It's their platform. They platformed on it in 2020. And so you can find this on YouTube now, that they want a Great Reset. They wanted it through COVID-19, where everybody would be able to reset their principles and their not just economic, but social structures to fit one global structure. If this sounds insane to you, it's because it is. And when people found out about that, like, well, I don't want to vote for someone that supports this. I want someone that will secure our borders. Things like build that wall is maybe a simplistic way of saying it. I want someone that can secure our borders, but will have our nation's interest in mind when they make deals with other foreign entities, not a globalist agenda in mind. This is what Obama did, where he continued to push this globalist narrative that people didn't like Obama for. Mm-hmm. And so when you pushed back against that, people just called you racist. And like, what does that have to do with me not liking his globalism, his globalist agenda? And so we don't want to. So if you want to go to number 2, let's go to that. If you want to go to number 3 of what Christians have been thinking about, it's the deep state. At least that's something that you have to be concerned about. This is not just me. These are Christian leaders that have been talking about this again and again and again. We don't want the deep state, unelected bureaucrats, having total control over our nation. This is where, Donald Trump called it the deep state because a lot of people do. I think Obama even referred to them as the blob, famously. He called them the blob. This is the CIA. This is the State Department. This, you could call it the FBI now because the FBI is all for it. And it is the Pentagon. So you have all these unelected bureaucrats that are making these decisions year in, year out of how our country's direction is going. So even if you elect somebody, that person effectively has no power, which is what we saw with Donald Trump, which is what we saw with Biden. When it comes to foreign relations, if you go against what the deep state wants, you'll have a huge amount of pushback. In fact, Biden didn't go against the deep state at all. And so who's running the country now is the question that people are asking. When Israel launched missiles and counterattacked Iran, I think this was a few weeks ago from our recording, where was the United States? Where was Biden's statement on this? You didn't see Biden until recently, where he came out and congratulated Trump, saying that there will be, a team for transition or something like that. I mean, who's running everything when every single country in the world looks to the U.S. to do anything big? Because it's true. Every country in the world looks to the United States when something big happens. Where was our comment on this? Where is our direction on this? Where is our leadership on this? Because they are looking to us. And so, when you talk about the deep state, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And when we talk about the deep state, this is not just, just some conspiracy. We are literally talking about what is happening now, what we are seeing with our eyes. Why are we now demonizing Russia when they are not a threat to us? Why are we demonizing Russia? You just go in and say, you can't attack Ukraine. We'll slap you upside the head. And Russia would stop. In fact, we know this is the case because as soon as Donald Trump became president-elect, what happened? Vladimir Putin contacted the president-elect saying, I want to talk about peace with Ukraine. He didn't do it while Biden was president. There's a lot of reasons why he might do that, but he didn't do that. Trump is the one that went to Putin and said, there's a lot of golden domes here in Moscow. It'd be a shame if anything happened to him. And this is the kind of person Trump is. This is why people voted him in. We know that this is what Donald Trump said in an interview. He is someone that was uncontrollable. And this is what I think the deep state is recognizing. When it comes to foreign relations, they can't control this guy. And so even as a kid, he was uncontrollable. So his parents send him to take, and this is what Donald Trump said, an aptitude test. And it came back, when the results came back, he said his father was very disappointed because he just wasn't someone that could be controlled. So when it came to foreign relations, he was seen as this, power keg ready to blow if you messed with him. So people really on the edge of their seats. And in the end, what happened? More peace was promoted than ever in your lifetime, at least, when a president was in power. So we saw things like that happen. I want to do one more thing before you give me another question. It's about the deep state.
Yeah.
In 2020, when the presidential campaigns was going on, there's a laptop that came out for whatever reason, probably because he was out of his mind or really high on drugs. Hunter Biden gave 3 of his laptops for fixing or whatever, for repair. And the person repairing the laptop found all this information that was damning to not just Hunter Biden, but at the time, the one person running for president, Joe Biden. And from these laptops, there was damning evidence of corruption, of illegal activities that were going on, money laundering, all these shell companies, emails, texts between foreign entities. It all was there in the laptop.
Yeah.
And when it came out, this was damning to the presidential candidate, the Democratic ticket, or the Democrat ticket. We found out later that Hunter got a job in the board of Burisma, which is the most corrupt company in Ukraine. And Ukraine is the most corrupt nation in Europe. And so this is the corrupt of the corrupt. He became a board member. And what did he know about oil? What did he know about Burisma? What did he know about energy in Ukraine? Nothing. But he became a board member. He was getting paid effectively $1 million a year. And these things were insane. Biden has come out saying that he, withheld funds to Ukraine unless they got rid of a prosecutor that was looking into Burisma. And he came out and bragged about it, saying, "Son of a B." Well, he was let go. That kind of thing. He was it's a very popular line. The House committee did their research. They did their their findings on it. They had their they had the people that they would subpoena and they would call to give testimony. We know that 10% for the big guys there. We know names like Devin Archer. These are all there. We found checks like of 100K, multiple checks of 100K. I think at least 2, and that were going out that we don't know where this money's coming from. Just one check that we saw get paid to Joe Biden from his brother with the note that said loan repayment, which is shady as heck. We know that Hunter Biden was paying Joe Biden's bills, doing house renovation for Joe Biden, but from Hunter's money. We know that Joe Biden financially benefited. What happened when the laptop story came out, though? We know all this shady stuff. Did we look into it? The answer is no, we didn't. In fact, Twitter censored it. Facebook censored it. A month before the FBI came out and said, in October, something's going to happen where there will be false information about Hunter Biden. And that memo was distributed to the social media agencies like Facebook and Twitter. How did they know that? And how did they know it was false? In fact, now we know, because of the testimonies of the head of the FBI, that the FBI sat on the laptop for at least 10 months knowing that laptop was real. But what happened was, led by Anthony Blinken, even though he denies it, it was led by Anthony Blinken because of, again, the House committee finding out all these things, that they wrote a letter saying that the laptop was Russian disinformation or misinformation. Disinformation.
That. Yeah.
How did they know that? And 51 intelligence agency agents, former agents and agents signed it. 51 intelligence agents signed it. This is a scandal bigger than Watergate. The deep state is bigger than you recognize. The CIA and the FBI disrupted domestic operations, namely the biggest one that we had, the elections in 2020. The laptop showed so many bad things that I will not mention here, but with drugs, with prostitutes, they had pictures. This dude is so morally bankrupt. He had an illicit video of him having an affair with his dead brother's wife, and he would upload that to porno sites. This dude is so morally, not just bankrupt, this dude is bad. But we know that he took flights on Air Force Two around the world to meet with foreign dignitaries, did business dealings with his dad. This is not okay. The fact that the deep state protected him, again, deep state, I mean CIA, the FBI, the Pentagon, and the State Department, the fact that they all are in cahoots in protecting this family, and they became Joe Biden became president of the United States, and 9 of the CIA agents that signed the 51 that signed, 9 of them wrote a letter saying Kamala was now the most capable person as commander in chief. This is a corrupt system. This is why people are finding out about this and then saying we cannot vote for a party that is all for this.
Yeah.
That is not only protecting it, propagating it. They're letting this stuff happen. Why are they doing that? And so, look, if you're listening to this and this is brand new information, I'm disappointed. Why is this brand new information? Because it's been out there. The congressional hearings, they're out there. The documents, they're out there. This is public news. Why? Because the news media that you've been consuming is only Trump man bad, Orange man Hitler 2.0. He's gonna take all your rights away.
Yep.
He's not gonna let you have abortions anymore. And that's like, not letting you have the abortions. That's the biggest thing. How can you do that? And so when other people say, actually, that's not the biggest issue, I could care less about, what you are complaining to me about. I care about the ultimate corruption of the bureaucracy, the unelected bureaucracy that continues to hold power and do things against the will of the American people. If they came at you with that, how are you going to respond? And what I've found is people just roll their eyes and say, whatever, dude. It's like, what are you talking about? So for me, those are the 2 and 3s. Number 1 is the abortion issue. You can't just willy-nilly kill your baby. And this is where the Afghanistan thing comes into play.
Yeah.
It's because they are so deeply corrupt that the Afghanistan thing doesn't matter to people like this. They are so morally bankrupt that the Afghanistan thing doesn't matter, because who knows how many other people are dying around the world under this presidential administration. They are not being protected by the United States. We, in fact, did some kind of weirdo trade where we gave one of the biggest arms dealers, the most corrupt and evil weapons trader in Russia. We traded him back for a WNBA player.
Brittany Griner.
Because she actually broke their laws.
Yep.
And smuggled in marijuana, which is illegal in Russia.
Yeah.
So who do we trade to get her back?
Arms dealer.
How does that make sense? So when you're looking at stuff like this, how does that make sense, bro? So when people are legitimately asking this, and this is not just the one thing, it's over and over and over again. Why isn't the media agencies that are supposed to be trusted reporting on this? Rather, they're reporting on other garbage that people could care less about. Like, oh, he's a dictator. It's like, look what he said. On day 1, he's going to be a dictator. Of course, taking him out of context. And now we're sitting there, again, with our backs to the wall, trying to defend a comment that was poorly said by now the president-elect. We could just say, that was poorly said. He shouldn't have said it like that. But he's not going to be a dictator. Can we leave it at that? Can we talk about the more important issues, the pressing issues, the issues that are really, really disturbing? How about we talk about stuff like that? I wanted to get away from stuff like that in our podcast, but I'm only bringing it up now because it is so insane that after all this time with the information out there, we are not talking about that, but rather we are talking about some tweet that he tweeted out or something that he said in an interview taken out of context. And so we have to defend that. So we're so busy defending this nonsense that we can't talk about the deeper issues at play. And so this is what I'm talking about. What about the censorship of social media, of the things that we are trying to share that really we think that will be dire to the nation if we continue on? And so that's what we want to talk about. And I told you I'll do some research, bring some receipts on that stuff. And so this is stuff that we can continue to ask people. If you really want to look at it, look it up. In fact, there is someone that put it together in a book and has a report out. And her name is Miranda Devine. And so she has done some interviews as well, but she's written a book on it. So she compiled all this information. You can look at that, read that. if you want to know more about what I just talked about, especially when it comes to the corruption of the laptop story.
So I think actually quick fact about the climate control, climate policy. New Jersey's plastic bag ban has shifted consumer bag use to reusables while also resulting in a 40% increase in greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah. So we got rid of plastic bags because they're so bad for the environment. We got this reusable stuff, and now people are throwing them away. And because they don't last, they rip, and you just can't hold them forever. And they have created more damage to the environment. In the end, when I say it's not about your care for the environment, you don't care about the environment. It's such a lie. You convince yourself you are.
Yeah.
If you really convince yourself, do the research. Punch the numbers. Go to fiscal responsibility. It's really about power. The more regulations that you could, just throw down and just force down people's throats, the more regulations that you could do, the more power you have. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And look at Peanut. It went viral the day before the election. And it's this New York City guy who, rescues animals. He rescued this raccoon. He rescued this squirrel because his mom died, I think, getting run over by a car. So this little squirrel was a rescue.
It's tough.
The state came in and euthanized those two because they were, quote unquote, being illegally held. That threw people in an uproar. Why? Because the state has regulatory power. So they have all these regulations they put in place. You are doing something that's illegal. So they'll come in with guns, with, armor. They'll lock you up in a room. They'll take your pets and they'll euthanize them. And those things really upset people. It's not just about Peanut. It's not just about a squirrel. By the way, a squirrel that looked exactly like Peanut showed up for Harris's concession speech, which was just so epic. But it's not just about that. It is about, why do you want the state to have so much regulation and control? Maybe you're the one idolizing the state. Maybe you're the one that has government in the position of God. Maybe if you are voting for the Democrat ticket, maybe you love government so much you want them to control our lives. This is not what the Christian wants. The Christian does not want the government to control us. So why do you hate us for that? And if you go down to and maybe you could run through some of the numbers and Brian can put it up. But if you go down to Christians versus atheists, Christians for the vast majority voted for Trump. Atheists for the vast majority. And I'm talking about 66+%, vast majority, more than 2/3, a super majority on both sides, voted for Harris. So it does fall down ultimately, and people are always trying to do the whole race thing and gender thing, but I think it goes down to the religion thing. Brother, sister, if you're a Christian and you didn't vote for Trump, then you are on the minority. I mean, that's a fact. If you truly are a Christian, that is. And so why are you hating on other Christians? Don't hate on other Christians for voting on Trump. In fact, invite them to the table. Ask them, why'd you vote for Trump? What information am I missing? Perhaps maybe then you could get a better idea about how this person is not a fascist, a misogynist, a racist, or whatever name calling that they're doing on the news for voting for Trump.
So in response to the deep state argument that you brought up, I think a big concern amongst liberals is Project 2025, right? Because you talked about agencies outside of the president that were not elected controlling the president, controlling the government, right? A lot of people think that that's what Project 2025 will do. And for some of us that may not be aware of what Project 2025 is, it is a conservative blueprint for a second Trump administration. Well, it was from the Heritage Foundation, which is a think tank, a conservative think tank. And it is a 4-pillar document. It has a policy guide for the next Republican president. It has a LinkedIn-style database of personnel who could serve in that next administration. Then it has a training thing for those candidates. And 4, it has a playbook of actions taken within the first 180 days. And this is from ABC News. So this is a concern for a lot of people because people are saying, well, Trump isn't really in control. It's these conservative think tanks like the Heritage Foundation. Those guys are in control. And as a matter of fact, one of the concerns is in 2015, the Heritage Foundation also released a mandate for leadership ahead of Trump's first term. And 2 years into the presidency, the Heritage Foundation touted that Trump had instituted 64% of its policy recommendations. And so here we have this document, and here we have proof that Trump had actually instituted 64% within 2 years. And so there is a fear that the president is being moved around like a puppet by a conservative think tank to do whatever they want to do, right? And you know, I do have to say though, in on July 5th on his social media platform, Truth. No, what am I saying?
Truth Social.
True Social. Trump wrote, "I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who is behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them." And so he has been distancing himself from Project 2025, but the Democrats continue to associate them together. Isn't that an argument? Like, you know, you talk about deep state, but what about Project 2025?
They're not bureaucrats. They're voters. These are people that got together and said, you know what, let's help them out by putting something in writing. I haven't read Project 2025, but, you know, from what I hear, there's nothing I really disagree with. What do you disagree with there? Honestly, I don't know. If it's a conservative blueprint, then great. Let's keep it up. Is it fiscal, social, all these conservative values, if they want to promote that and they have a good way of doing that effectively, let's go. Let's do it. I think there is a media propaganda. The machine started to run as soon as they heard about Project 2025, saying this is going to bring us back to 1825 or something like that. It's crazy.
What was happening there?
I don't know. I think something like the Republican Party was founded to get rid of slavery. So a great thing happened.
John Quincy Adams became president. Oh, the Erie Canal opened.
But yeah, people are saying, yeah, I'm gonna, start wearing, what was that with Margaret Atwood's book? With the red hood and Handmaid's Tale. That's
Handmaid's Tale, yeah.
Yeah, so people are like, we're gonna be put back in and then you're just like, what? What are you talking about? And so, yeah, I mean, and so people are all it's all fear mongering. I hope that people understand this is fear mongering. So if you come at me with something like that, and we'll just say that's just fear mongering. Nothing like that has happened during the 4 years of Trump's initial tenure, and it won't happen again. Well, how do you know? How do you know? It's like, what? Because it hasn't happened, and he's never said anything to the effect where it will happen.
Yeah.
Where are you coming up with this? So where is this all coming from? What evidence do you have that you're going to be put into like little burqas? We're not an Islamic State. And, by the grace of God, we never will be. And so I hope that people understand that. There really obviously is a key difference between unelected bureaucrats that are nameless and faceless behind the scenes moving all our, the chess pieces, and then Project 2025, where a bunch of citizens got together, a think tank was formed, and is now giving recommendations to the president. I hope people can see the difference. If you can't see the difference, we got different issues.
Sorry, my information was from CBS, not ABC. I got that mixed up. I wanted to also talk about a reaction. Before that, though, is there anything else that you'd like to?
You could go ahead, yeah.
So there was a reaction that's catching heat called the 4B movement. And this is a feminist movement that advocates for women to swear off men and childbirth entirely. And it's becoming a buzz in the United States after the victory of Donald J. Trump. And this is from ABC News. That's how I got it mixed up. So I want to just kind of talk a little bit about this movement. It is from South Korea, which has the lowest fertility rate in the world, and marriage rates are down. It's called 4B because it's 4 words that begin with P in Korean. And these are the 4 pillars of this movement: refusal of heterosexual marriage, refusal of childbirth, refusal of dating men, rejection of heterosexual sexual relationships as a whole. And so it's a movement that calls for women to abstain from sex, dating, marriage, and having children with men. And we've seen this on social media where people will even break up with their boyfriends that voted Republican and take part in this 4B movement. Some people are even shaving their heads.
Yeah. I mean, Korea right now is going through a crises, well, many crises, I should say, but a major crisis where you see conservative values versus liberal values. And a lot of it is down the line of gender, where you have a lot of women taking the 4B positions or this movement and liberal positions, and men taking more conservative positions. And so, people are not getting together. They're not having babies. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at them. Ideologically, they're separated. And so, some women are now taking that and trying to adopt it here and trying to make it big on TikTok and things like that.
So how do we respond to something like this? I mean, to be honest, there are a lot of people in our vicinity that are grieving, that are mourning, that are going to this extreme. Again, how do we continue to pray? And again, how do we continue to minister to them? Because like you said, it is very difficult because they won't even have a conversation. The moment that you wear this MAGA hat, they won't even listen to anything that you say because you become instantly a racist, instantly a misogynist. So how do you have meaningful conversations? How do you minister, especially to Christian brothers and sisters that may have voted Kamala Harris and won't even talk to you if you voted Trump?
I think time is a big one. Be patient. I think some people, I forgot who said it. I think it was Jimmy Fallon that said Thanksgiving is going to be wild this year. But, you might have family members that are just going to come in with guns blazing. Well, hopefully not literally, but figuratively. Guns blazing, saying, who voted for Trump? Not going to eat with you, and things like that.
Right.
And so you just have to wisely go about it. I sent you that little screen cap of a text between someone and their grandma.
Yes.
Well, you could talk about that one too, and then I could respond to that.
So this is someone texting their grandmother. And the grandmother, this is what the grandmother...
They put it on Reddit. Yeah, right. They put it on Reddit after.
This is the grandmother texting. Yay, the president is my choice. I think Wisconsin went red, but I'm not sure. This is the grandchild. Go to hell. Grandmother, sorry to hear I didn't mean to make you my enemy. Grandchild, you did mean it. You voted for a convicted rapist.
Which is false.
Yeah, I don't know where they got that from. Toby is a convicted rapist from The Office, but Donald Trump is not.
But Donald Trump is not a convicted rapist.
No, he's not.
I don't know where this narrative came from.
People have been saying it.
There was a civil suit from E. Jean Carroll that she won and hundreds of millions of dollars against Donald Trump. But Donald Trump appealed and he won the appeal. So she owes all that money back. That's not a conviction. This is a civil suit. And it was appealed and he won on appeal. So there's no conviction of rape. And,
so I think people tend to pick and choose which convictions they like and don't like. I think that's what it is.
Donald Trump is not a convicted rapist. If you say that, that is false.
Defamation of character. This is the grandmother. Jack, I just don't see it that way. So sorry I upset you. This is Jack. Stop playing victim. Have fun living out your years knowing that nobody loves you. That's tough. I don't know about that one.
So, look, this is an extreme case of TDS, and we talked about this. But if someone hates Trump so much, he's a convicted rapist. False. If you say this is false, I don't know how they're going to respond because they've convinced themselves this person is the spawn of Satan. And so to fight the spawn of Satan, you will be Satan himself. I just find that ironic that you wouldn't be able to live well with those that are supposed to be the closest to you, that will support you no matter what. This is truly something like where God has given you kin so that they can support you through thick and thin. Can I just give you two
Please.
Maps? So, Brian, maybe you could put this one up too. But this is a heat map indicating the difference between conservatives and liberals. And the heat map indicates, if you're looking at this, it says your highest moral allocation by ideology. And so what is number one? So if your heat map is highest in the center, that means this is to your immediate family and then extended family, your closest friends, and then, things of that nature, all going to the more broader, more general things like the people in the internet or something like that. It goes to, it's kind of funny. If you look at this, it goes to number 14 will be all things in the universe, including plants and trees. 15 is all natural things in the universe, including entities such inanimate entities or inert entities such as rocks. And then 16 is all things in existence. So what do you have the highest moral allocation? What do you connect it to the most, right? And if you look at a conservative, what's the heat map? It's to your family.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the people closest to you. What about a liberal? And you look at a heat map there, it's to like all amphibians, reptiles, mammals, fish, and birds, all animals on Earth, including
alien
Paramecia and amoebae, right?
Alien life forms.
Right, and alien life forms. This is, look, when we say like leftism is a mental disorder, and people have been saying that, this is true. Like, you can't think that you are more connected to amoeba than you are to your grandma.
It's tough.
You cannot think that. That cannot be the way you should live. And in fact, this is a trend of conservatives and liberals.
Yeah.
Who are you closest to? It should be your immediate family. It should be your church. It should be the community that you live in, not amoeba. And so I hope that people get this. When people are trying to now not only disassociate, but to cut off connections because of their political affiliations, if you are a church member, and I cannot state this strongly enough, if you are a family or a church member and you are going to cut off relations because of how they voted, that is an evil position to take. That is an evil moral stance. You don't cut off someone because they took a different position than you in their voting. You can tell them why they are wrong. You could tell them why this can be very dangerous, but you don't cut them off because you're more connected to amoeba. That is evil, and you know what? I'm going to add in just my own personal thoughts. That's just stupid.
Yeah,
that's an idiotic position to take. And I hope people recognize this. I hope you wake up from this, and I hope you think like, oh, that was just a bad dream where I wanted to disconnect from everybody that voted Trump. That was just a bad dream. I hope that's the case, okay?
Yeah.
Because the more you think like this, the more you will not only not want a family, you can't have a family. You have now been formed mentally and spiritually not to be able to have a family. Forget physically, forget the 4 Bs. Mentally, you will not be able to have a family because you cannot associate yourself with those that are closest to you. And to find, camaraderie, you'll look to the internet or something like that, as if they could ever be closer to you. That's ridiculous. And so, yeah, you can't have social relationships anymore. That's a sad reality that we are seeing happening in the world.
A lot of people who have voted in a certain way, Republican, they do feel alienated by friends and family, like we just saw in the example with the grandma. Are there any words of ministry, of comfort that you would give to those who do feel alienated by their friends, their family, and sadly enough, their church family?
Yeah, it's a really sad place to be in. Just know that if you believe that you are in the right, that you are standing on biblical principles and morals, this is what you want to continue to stand on. When people throw tantrums and people threaten you by saying, I'm going to cut off our relationship with you, what they are saying is you will now concede to my positions, even though I don't have an argument that could beat you. You will concede to me. And, honestly, do you really want a relationship like that? Honestly, do you want a relationship where anytime this person will disagree with you, they'll throw a tantrum, they'll threaten to break up with you, they'll threaten to leave your life, and you just have to give in? Because isn't that the classic definition of an abusive relationship? That's emotional abuse. So that is the classic definition of emotional abuse, and this is what they are putting on you. So look, if you need to get out of the emotional abuse, I understand. If you're telling me then, oh, this is just a stage, it's just, it's just a phase in their life.
Yeah.
They'll get over it. I hope so. Honestly, I hope so. I think it's a mental disorder that people have now given into. This is why I think TDS is real. It's a derangement syndrome. It's a mental disorder where they have now conditioned themselves, or they have been conditioned to immediately, when they see that man, when they see that orange face, they want to kill him. That's a disorder. And so when you're facing with people with disorder, sometimes you can't help anything. I mean, what can you do? But you can continue to pray for them, continue to encourage them, saying what is primary in our lives as brothers and sisters is the worship of God. Let's continue to worship God together. Can you do that? And if they go, no, I don't want anything to do with you, I don't know how else you could honestly respond, but continue to remind them what is primary in your lives. It's you have covenanted with one another if you're church members. That should take precedent over political affiliation, especially in the United States. It should take precedent over that. And so I hope that, this can be an encouragement to those that might be feeling a little down, that you might lose some friends over this. I don't know what else to say. Maybe I could give you a word of encouragement by saying, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club, brother. Welcome to the club, sister. Because that's what we've been going through for years now in our church through our podcast. But we want to encourage you. Like, this is what we always want to extend an olive branch if they meant war, and we don't want to. We always want to be friends with people. We always want to engage in dialogue and conversation if they are willing, right? But at the same time, if they don't and they're refusing, they just want to call you derogatory names. They want to call you fascist, maybe Hitler 3.0. I don't know. Whatever it is. Yeah, it's tough. What are you going to do? But continue to promote the truth. Continue to share what is good, what is right, what is beautiful. Share the good things with the people that you love. I'm sad that we can't share something simple and beautiful like a meal with those that we might disagree with.
Yeah.
Maybe I could give you an update to encourage you. I talked about someone that had TDS that I knew. This person actually texted me after the election and said, looks like my guy lost. And then it was all good after that.
Girl.
I don't know exactly what they said, but the person that I was vying for lost.
Right.
And we were just able to move on and talk about other things.
Yeah.
And so, I told them that, trying to encourage him, even though he's not a Christian, but I said, as a pastor in my church, I continue to encourage people that no matter who the president is, we pray for that person.
Yep.
So that's what I'll continue to do. And this person really enjoyed that comment that I made. That it doesn't matter who it was. If it would have been Harris, if it would have been Trump, our church is commanded to pray for them.
And I think that's a great reminder. We are Americans first. We're Christians, obviously, first. That's way up there. That's number one. But then we are Americans before we are Democrats or Republicans. And as Americans, it is our duty to pray for our country, a duty to pray for our leader, whoever that leader may be. We are to pray for that individual and for this country. And so that is our prayer and our hope and our recommendation to anyone who's listening, that you would continue to keep Biden and Harris in prayer as they finish out their term, and also pray for future President Trump and VP JD Vance, my guy. Pray for him pray for them as well, as they will be taking the mantle coming this January. And so we need to continue to pray as Christians. We need to put our differences aside and continue to pray as the unified Church of Christ. And so I think that's a great reminder for us as we close today.
You don't want to do the exit polls?
We can. So as we exit this episode, I wanted to bring up the exit polls. It's very interesting how a lot of demographics have actually flipped this year. And I think Brian will put these up Are there any comments that you want to make as we close with these exit polls?
Yeah, I mean, you could explain some of the stuff that we want to go through, but the reason why I wanted to bring it up, and a lot of this is from NBC, but when you do like by sex or by race, those things are interesting to look at to see how it has shifted for Trump. And if you are a Harris voter, why are you surprised if you're surprised, right? Maybe you shouldn't have been surprised. So one of the things that I wanted to share is if you really want to be an informed voter and you want to do your duty as a Christian to be a good citizen of the place that you live in, then it shouldn't have surprised you that Trump won by this much. When you look at the exit polls, it shouldn't have surprised you.
The American Indian vote was crazy.
Yeah. Even though they make up such a small portion of our population,
Yeah.
they make up 1%. You could look it up. You could show the chart, Brian, but 64%.
Yeah.
So that is almost a super majority of American Indians voted for the Republican ticket.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And so I think these are kind of interesting things for us to keep in mind as well as we move forward.
Yeah. What's disappointing is the Asian. So if you're Asian listening to this, just know the majority of Asians voted for Harris.
Yeah, they did.
More women than men, though.
56%.
Yeah.
But that's something interesting for us to look at and keep in mind.
Yeah, so if you're an Asian woman, you probably voted, if we were just talking about majority, you probably voted for Harris.
Yeah.
Asian man, it was almost split in half, but Asian man, it was almost in the 50s, I think. If you go by age, this is why you're seeing Gen X's. The vast majority voted for the Republican ticket.
Yeah.
So, you see by generation. Well, let's just show the charts, and then we can see what stands out to you. But one thing that does stand out to me is the black vote. Blacks have primarily, and always historically, I should have said, primarily voted for the Democrat ticket, over 95%. This time it was different, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so, especially black men, went all the way down to 78 voted for the Democrat ticket and 20% voted for the Republican ticket. Black
Right.
women is close to the 95 that we saw, but still a little bit down. And Latino men, the majority voted for the red ticket this time.
Yeah.
And so we saw a huge shift in almost every single demographic over to the Republican ticket.
And what was interesting, I think we talked about this maybe before, was the difference between the vote in New York and the vote in Florida. I believe the vote in Florida, the difference was 13%,
Yep.
right? And the difference in New York was 12%.
Yeah.
Which
New
is
York
crazy.
is more of a swing state than Florida because
Right.
Florida was always considered a swing state. But 13 points is a huge disparity between the two parties. In fact, New Jersey is only a 5-point difference. So New Jersey, so if you're living in Jersey, New Jersey had only a 5-point difference.
Yeah, Mawa
they're
stand
still
up.
counting the votes, but
Yeah.
from what we see here now on Friday, it's 5% difference. So New Jersey is a swing state, baby. That's
Yeah.
what it means. New
Yeah.
Jersey is a swing state, more than Florida, at least. And so
Yeah.
those are things that we are getting to notice here.
I meant points, not percent, sorry.
It's the same thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
then I meant what I said.
Yes. I'm glad.
But again, I think this is a great reminder for us to continue to strive in prayer for our government, for our country, and for our brothers and sisters who may be going through a tough time right now, that we would be able to be good stewards of the truth and that we would be a light to our brothers and sisters who are around us. Not saying they have to vote Republican, but first and foremost of the gospel. And I think that is the most important job as Christians.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you pray that maybe the Democrat the Democrat Party will just wake up.
Absolutely.
And then they'll change.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll expand their umbrella to accept pro-lifers again.
Yep.
Maybe they'll change their ways to say, this isn't working. We can't run solely on a pro-choice platform. And hopefully they'll change.
Yeah.
But until then, you lost the Christian vote. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We thank you for listening to this episode of the Dear Church podcast. Join us next week as we will be continuing our church series and talking about church leadership. So that should be a good one.
Especially as the elder elect. Now you have a president elect and an elder elect. You must be on cloud 9. Now you are on equal level with me.
We'll discuss why that's not the case next week.
Well, I don't. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not the first among the, Anyway, we hope and pray that this has been a blessing in your ears. Fight the good fight, finish the race, keep the faith. Peace.